So the largest black hole that is said to exist as of right now is known as S50014 plus 81, I think the number was. And it's a ridiculous amount of, it's like 12.40 something billion light years away from Earth. And it's said to be like 40 times the distance between or from the sun to Pluto's orbit, about 40 times the radius of that, or 20 times the diameter, how you pronounce it. And I'm trying to think exactly how many miles exactly that is, because last I checked, Pluto's orbit was roughly like 2.8 billion something, maybe well, in miles. But I have to find the right conversions. I'll make another video about it. But to think that like, we can't even see Pluto with the naked eye for the most part. You'd have to get like a special telescope from Earth to Pluto. Mind you, you can take kind of like 93 million miles off that, because from here to the sun is 93 million miles. So if we were to go from the Earth to Pluto, it's still a distance away, let alone like 20 other or 40 other distances, like let alone like another 939 trips from here to Pluto, or the orbit of it at least. It's crazy to think that, for something, they say that space is very, very large, but it just looks like there's nothing out there. But even in quantum physics, and I believe this, nothing is still something. And when you get into the mindset that, everything in space is moving, even though it doesn't feel like it, and then you come to the realization that, there are things out there that are moving faster than the speed of light in some cases. Like, some people might debate this, but this is true, though. There are objects out there that, because they're moving away from, like, everything in space is moving farther away from each other, but at the same time, though, the light that goes, like take for example other stars that are in the solar system, or near our solar system. There are some stars that we cannot see because their starlight has not reached this planet yet, for two reasons. Well, at least two reasons, but here's two reasons to think about: how fast everything is moving far apart from each other, and how fast everything is moving in space. Light travels roughly 300,000 kilometers per second, or something like that. No, wait. 1, 2, 3. I'm trying to think, because where I come from, I use miles. I don't use kilometers. But 1 kilometer is 1 mile is 1.6 kilometers. So basically, if you wanted to convert kilometers to miles, or miles to kilometers, you would just take kilometers and divide it by like 1.6, and then you'd see how many miles you get, which is actually really interesting. Last I checked, I think it was like so light travels, it's like roughly 140,000 miles, somewhere around there, if I remember correctly. It's somewhere around there. But still, like, light travels, like the distance between the Earth and the sun is 93 million miles. And what's really interesting is it takes approximately, if you don't round it, you could take 500 seconds. And so there's 8 minutes and 480 seconds. So that would mean there's 20 seconds left. So you would have 8 minutes and 20 seconds for the sun's light to reach the Earth. And that's just insane to think that, you have black holes out there that can suck everything in its wake, or some people believe that they don't even suck now. I'm actually reading some of this stuff now. And it's like, even if you have a black hole that moves in space, because they move and they orbit, they can push themselves into like another object, and it just takes everything, because the gravity just pushes it towards that. And they even have like this term, like, you get spaghettified, and it just pulls you down like a noodle. Like like time and space is weird. You know, you have all these people that will debate that like what is really true, what's really false, and we don't even know. You know, you get these people that believe that there's a creator, and yet when you look at some of the things that are out there, why do these things exist? You know, even if mortals can't understand it, it's like why would a god create a black hole? What purpose does it have to clean up the universe and then send it somewhere else, whatever that may go? And if there's more than one black hole out there, do they lead to the same dimension, or you know, wherever they may lead? You know, nobody knows these things. You know, it's all, that's the thing that's scary. It's beyond our comprehension. There's so many possibilities we don't know. They're more powerful than we are. The laws of the universe. And it's like, and this is all factual stuff. Like, you know, you try to understand like what a black hole is, what dark matter is, what dark energy is. Nobody knows, because nobody can figure out what the hell they need to do to convert this stuff. Whether you're looking at it differently, or you're looking at some kind of mixture, you know. And not only that, but it's like, but it's still something though. And you know, then you have like weird paradoxes, or other like illusions, fancy word for illusion, where it's like, you know, nobody knows what this stuff is, but because it exists though, it just makes you really think like maybe life isn't what we think it is. You know, you got people that will argue that the human race evolves from bacteria that's not even from this planet. So like your body's made up of more unknown bacteria than it has classified. And there have been scientists that have proven what I'm about to say, that, you know, your genetics could have been from a life form that was dead many years ago, and it came from another part of the galaxy or universe. And it's like, you think about that, and it's like, wow, man, like how many things we get lost in time with. And it's crazy to think that. And black holes, they just suck things up, or they transport stuff, because energy doesn't get destroyed. It's like, you know, I've always thought, and some people might disagree with this, but I've always thought that if there's one side of a black hole, what's on the other side? You know, it has to go somewhere. You know, maybe one side to the next. Yes, it would be destroyed, it'd be converted into something else. But if a black hole is made of energy, or it's just a rip in time and space itself, then it has to go, like, somewhere, though. And maybe that's what creates another universe. Maybe black holes and their nature is actually proof that of some kind of parallel universe, or some kind of alternate dimension that humanity can't understand. Because, you know, because as time goes on, those black holes get patched out. So it's almost like the universe itself is coded in its own. You know, like we could travel, like say we travel through time and space. Like every time, like this is what's really interesting I found with the Earth, for example. You know, like every planet that orbits in its own, it's pushing itself through space. So technically speaking, while the Earth's got its own protective layers, like the ozone layer and all that, there's technically black matter and dark energy that could technically be found on this planet. Because while the Earth is traveling through the time and space, it's actually quite interesting to think that, you know, it's pushing itself into that dark matter and dark energy. So it could very well fall onto this planet somewhere. And some people have speculated that that might be where a lot of radiation might be coming from too. Because if you really study like different types of radiation, you can find like cell phone radiation, radioactivity radiation. Last I checked, I think dark matter and dark energy were actually radioactivity matter, but I could be wrong though. And then you have like stuff like antimatter and all that, and it's like, you know, what is all this stuff? Speculation leads, you know, scientists believe that, especially with science, that science would say that everything is made of something. Even nothing is still something in the laws of the universe. And they've proven this with many laws, like the law of conservation, saying that energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be multiplied, basically. And this is true. So if you could believe that, what are we really looking at here? All these types of matter that we don't know about, what are they and what do they turn into? It's kind of like back in the days when people try to understand alchemy, taking something, turning it into something else. The term would now be chemistry, basically, trying to understand everything's physical properties and then trying to convert it into something else. And when you really think of it like that, you start to understand the building structure of life itself and trying to understand what really makes everything unique in its own way. Because again, if you think everything is infinite, then that just means that everything can't be the same. Everything has to be different in its own way, to the point where life itself is unique because of all its possibilities. And people shouldn't be ashamed of that. So it's like the same thing with these black holes. Sure, they might end life as they know it, but what is its purpose? Why does it need to exist? What are these things doing? Are they creating other ripples in time and then sending it to another dimension? Are we looking at time and space wrong? So when you see a black hole exist the way it does, is that just another gateway, depending on where it starts and where it ends, to go to another dimension? Are black holes really wormholes, theories would say? And what about white holes, where they say they have the opposite effect? I made another video about this, talking about where, if black holes really do have two sides, what happens if one side gets closed down? Is it possible that they could create this rift, where one side closes and the other side doesn't, and then the other side does eventually close, and then you're stuck in this alternate dimension between two gaps? Because it's weird, because the thing that really interests me about black holes is the fact that not only can they destroy things and basically kill living organisms, because you wouldn't really be able to comprehend it then, but it's just the fact that you're just in this void. It's you could essentially say it's like purgatory. The outside is really cold, but the inside is said to be very hot. I couldn't tell you exactly the temperature. This is all just based on memory. But it seems that the way black holes work is, the idea is that eventually they get patched out, and eventually they seem to cause some sort of ripple in time. But again, if everything is made of matter, it's kind of interesting to think that a black hole could just separate things, convert it back to other original forces, and then it's just creating more of what it's trying to convert, rather. As confusing as that may sound. It's like this cycle. It sucks things or it takes things away from somewhere else and it pulls it somewhere else to create another universe and another universe and another. And I mean, maybe one day we'll fully understand how these things really work. But it's the thing that a black hole can be caused, there's 3 different ways that I could tell you how they're caused, and they all have something to do with the mass being greater or less than a neurostar. Or was it a neutral star? I'd have to double check. I think it was a neurostar or something like that. Nuclear star? Anyways, but here's the thing though. These stars, it depends on their mass. There has to be a certain mass that they have to achieve before they can even be considered a black hole. And it's usually near the end of its cycle. For example, our sun is not going to be a black hole. It's going to basically swell up like a supergiant, maybe something else. And then it will eventually start to implode on itself a little bit once the helium runs out. After, it won't matter with us, but basically the way it works is our star is not going, it's kind of like following the red hypergiant stage, or somewhere around there. It's going to get bigger, basically, because the helium still remains in the Earth, or the sun, once the hydrogen runs out. See, really what really affects a star's cycle depends on what happens first. Its mass, its life, how hot it is, There have even been stars like zombie stars where like one star was dying and somehow it was able to reverse its star cycle. And it came back to life while it was like in the stage of dying. It's like there have been some weird things that it's mostly timing too that scientists have been able to find, because there are stars out there that like orbit other stars. They call it like a binary system. Or not binary like as in like coding, but it's like a two by solar system, and like 3 stars orbiting, and like a tri system, and like whatever the terms are. But it's just, to think that there's crazy things out there. Like, could you imagine like two solar systems orbiting each other? And then you look at galaxies, and there's like our galaxy alone is said to have like 500 billion stars in it, or maybe even more. I mean, depending on how big they are, it's kind of hard to really accurately measure them. But it's just crazy to think that, there are people out there that can come up with some sort of conclusion that there's more out there than we'll ever know. But at the same time, though, there's a lot of things that are lost in history, too. And you would have to be like a time-traveling god to be able to see all this, make sense of all of it. It sounds like science fiction, but it's like really, as time and progression goes on, anything really is possible. And as scary as black holes can be, what are their secrets, and what do we not see about them, So again, if you like these kind of videos, again, comment, rate, subscribe, favorite, share. I'll be making more of them because I enjoy doing this. So